Fantastic. Alan, thank you very much. I'm a mentor with Endeavor, so I know that story. It's really incredible, and it's really incredible to hear how that is going. We're going to get our next panel set up here. Let me see where we're going. Our next conversation. I have a question for everybody. We're having a conversation about cash to digital. I'm not going to steal anything from you, but reach into your pockets, reach into your purse, your bag. I want to know how many of you are carrying cash with you? A little bit. Less than half. No tengo nada. All right? This is interesting. I've traveled all over Latin America, and one of the biggest transformations happening in Latin America today is moving from cash to digital. While much of the region still runs on cash, the tools and partnerships driving digital payments are opening the door to the real financial inclusion. So to explore how we bridge this gap, we are joined by our panel. Let's get the chairs set up here for them. I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves as we get the panel going. We've got Danielle Vasquez, Luli's here, Michelle, and Maria. See? Vamos, let's give them a big round of applause as we start learning about cash to digital. Vamos.
All right, so it's a pleasure to be here today. We have an amazing set of panelists for you to explore all the opportunities and challenges in bridging the gap between cash to digital. So before we start, I would like, I think that the crowd here would love to hear more about what you're doing in the amazing financial institutions that you're all part of. So please, Luli.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Luli Peirelongue. I'm head of market development for international markets at TransUnion. Been in the payments industry for 27 plus years, working in card networks, financial institutions, fintech. So I'm very, very excited about this panel and the conversation we're going to have today alongside this amazing talent.
Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Paula Pascual. Really pleasure to be here with you all at this amazing and special place. I'm the Executive Vice President of MasterCard for Market Development. I joined the company recently after many years at PayPal in Brazil and Google in California. So when I hear Palo Alto and Silicon Valley, I kind of connect to the previous session. So really good to be here along you all. Thank you for the invite.
Hello to all. Welcome to the Volcano this year again. My name is Michel Caputi. I'm manager in Strategic Alliance in Banco Industrial, and also I'm the team lead manager of SIGI app.
All right, and my name is Daniel Vasquez. I'll be the moderator for today. I'm co-managing partner of a venture fund out of New York called K50 Ventures. We invest very early stage in fintech companies, healthcare, and software as a service. So in a region like Central America, where still about, let's call it 70% of the transactions are made in cash, what do you all think from where you stand? It's the single biggest lever we can use to continue digitizing cash payments, and how are your companies putting their grain of salt, of sand in this transition?
Well, I would say that the number one is trust. Trust and transparency for the ecosystem, for everybody who is participating in those transactions. At TransUnion, we are really focused on information for good. We want to enable our clients and our participants in the industry with trustworthy transactions. Make sure that they have the right transparency or the right visibility and understanding of what they're doing so they're comfortable. And with that trust and comfort, we can accelerate financial inclusion.
Yeah, I love this question because when you see the numbers, and we also saw in the previous presentation, the opportunity is huge. So how can we and how can our companies and our initiatives change this scenario? Today in Guatemala, and I had this conversation during lunch, 73% of the population is still rely on cash for everyday transactions. So how can we change this reality. And I think it's hard. Of course, trust is the most important thing for everybody, but it's hard to have one silver bullet. So we'll have to figure it out. How do we bring accessibility, trust, and solutions that will help educating consumers and sellers on how to become digital. And I think we have a ton of opportunities and products to discuss here.
Yeah, definitely I can get from Paula the diversity of solutions that have to be to digitalize an ecosystem successfully. This is a thesis that we see before in other countries, that you can complement the traditional products as a credit card, traditional that you know, and also other solution of instant payment as a QR codes, stable coins, crypto, whatever. One of the key things here, we have to put on the table the demonstration of saving time, of instantly reward for the SMEs in this case, and also to give it to them, add value to their entrepreneurship, saying that increase their sales or giving more opportunities to expand their service to other regions or to other type of clients.
I love that you mentioned diversity, because our region, when we talk about, I'm sorry, I crossed you, but when you when you talk about Latin America plus Caribbean, we are talking about 45 very diverse markets with different levels of maturity. So probably what works in Brazil, it's not going to work in Guatemala, or what works in Mexico is different from what we need in Colombia. But we have so many good examples and benchmarks that we can learn from other countries and apply, that I love when I hear about diversity, because I'm a truly believer that we can build amazing things inspired by what we learn from our other countries in the region.
Yeah, and as we learned before, scalability is not a problem, because you have a very valuable company in Kazakhstan that is valuing billions, and it's not in the size of Mexico or Brazil or Colombia.
So I'm curious. I know a lot of people in the crowd are not from, let's call it Guatemala itself, and they might not know the success story of Siggy. Why don't you share with us a bit more about Siggy and how you've been managing to digitize more and more consumers?
Well, we want to be a success case, but we are building up on that. Definitely, we are getting to millions of people at this point. But we have an angle, and we are working on that angle. We have a very high capacity of evolving of Siggy app. It's entrepreneurship of Banco Industrial, which is the biggest bank in Central America and the Caribbean. And I think this is one of the key parts of the potential success. We see this formula in other countries, maybe in Peru with Yape, or in Colombia with Neki, that is also here. But we are betting double bet on Siggy and this capacity to be trustful, to be transparent with the person, very easy to get involved in the application, and also you can add value immediately. The only that you have to do is download, and instantly you will have an opportunity opening your door. That is the key part of us, and also we are complementing with the diversity, because also in Siggy you can find a MasterCard product, and also in Siggy you will find with your data, with a specialist as TransUnion, you can have an access your first credit in the instant moment.
So
Just wanted to add, what I love about the services that Siggy is offering is really they're accelerating that digital onboarding and the engagement in purely digital experiences, which is what the consumers are looking for. They're coming from TikTok, they're coming from Instagram, they're coming from the reality of their lives being purely digital. So financial services have to follow that, and what we see in the model like Siggy is truly pushing for that.
And you mentioned, Michelle, the opportunity of unlocking, let's say, access to the credit system ultimately. So that's very interesting. Like you start as a replacement for cash for transactions, but then I guess the real opportunity and the real challenge is how we we unlock this or the access to financial services and not only to payment. So let's talk a little bit more about that in your case. And I know for TransUnion, this is obviously a huge piece of the market. And so how is this happening? How are you also bridging the trust gap and dealing with the challenges of identity, frauds, and so on? Luli, please, yeah.
So for TransUnion, secure digital onboarding is a priority, right? We want to make sure that when customers come onto digital platforms, they will have a trustworthy experience. And we want to enable our clients. We bring solutions to our clients that allow them to do all of the identity verification, validation. They can check the trustworthiness of devices that are participating in that engagement, that digital onboarding. Also, we help qualify the individual as well in the future transactions that they will participate in that environment. So for us, we're very focused on that. We help thousands of consumers and our clients across the globe. Our digital device data repository has more than 10 billion devices there with information that we can see real time. So it's super important for us, and we have a multi-layered approach, I would say, at an infrastructure level, and also the solutions layer that we offer to our clients. So it's a seamless experience. You have easy APIs to connect to, and it can be fast, which is what is a requirement for our moment right now.
We see it right now in mountains of raw data that is generated historically and also in this moment. But one of the keys is that how can we as a startup or incumbents, can we turn this raw data in real good experience for our customers? And what is a good experience? It's if we can eliminate the friction in the relationship of these persons with our companies or with the product. And how we do this, if we develop a very good score, it not have to be credit score, it can be in a score preventing fraud, and I don't have to call you 10 times just to know that you are doing that transaction, or maybe you are on traveling, if there is some travel that you maybe do it before, or call you in the moment that you be vulnerable or you has been vulgarized by any type of situation. And I think that it's a key part of this, the governance of the data inside of us and how we can manage to make the translation of this in a zero friction relationship with our clients.
I think friction is a really important word, because if you want to convince or even more educate users, you need to offer a really good experience, not only a safe one in a solid ecosystem, but for sure it should be a non-friction one. And I like it what you mentioned during your comment, your question, when you said about digitalization. It's not only payments, because sometimes we keep talking about payments. And when we open the opportunity, when we bring people to this new ecosystem for them, it is payments, of course, but it's also savings, credit, new products, all this tokenization, and many other initiatives that are part of this digital place that probably a lot of the small merchants, they don't have access. They don't even know that they need that. Having access to those solutions, they will increase their sales, they will increase their average ticket, they will increase the opportunities they have in their shop. So I think, of course, starting with trust and a non-friction, you can bring many more solutions to a small business and convince them by using, because when you have a good experience, you won't go back to cash anymore. You saw, a lot of us are here with effective or with cash.
No cash in my pocket either. And I'm curious, in MasterCard's case, like if you can comment, like how much new business is coming from, let's call it digital wallets and payments, and what's the journey that, how do they become, let's say, a MasterCard card holder Yeah, I'm just share with us a bit more how that looks like.
I think it's a different experience in different countries. As I said, we have many different levels of maturity, but and when we are talking about Guatemala specifically, accessibility is one of the biggest challenges and also opportunities. Just to give you a level of comparing with other regions, the acceptance of cards. In Chile, for example, for every 1,000 inhabitants, you have 122 POS, or acceptance place. In Brazil, this is around 118. In Colombia, this is also a big opportunity, 22, 23. Mexico, similar. In Guatemala, only 9. So the opportunity for accessibility, it is huge, and it's something that I'm working very hard with MasterCard when you look at it from the angle of the seller, the small business, and we have here many fintechs bringing smart acceptance use case where we are seeing proven results, which is amazing. So this is from the seller side. From the user, we are investing a lot on products that will make your digital life much easier, with passwords, with click to pay, with tokenization, and I think the opportunity, again, educating both sides of the sellers and the buyers with a strong fintech presence, as we see here, and continuous growth. I'm very excited with the future ahead of us.
I think when you have the opportunity for a person initiate a digital payment, you have to capitalize that opportunity. It's very important that you have a strategy in place that can identify the archetype of this person, and you can offer the next most valuable product for them, not for you, because it's easy for me to find which is the best product that I want to push. But definitely I have to personalize this offer in the person, and we have to manage all these data to put in place when the person is scanned for the first time and a QR code in a store, in the streets, or giving some money to anyone, or transferring this money using a credit card, a MasterCard, Send, or whatever option. We have to give it another opportunity to use to the person immediately, have a very good communication, and that is a key part of this transformation of the ecosystem.
Yeah, and usually this transaction, and mostly in countries in Central America, it can start with a prepaid card, with a debit card, and then when you see value and you feel confident about it, it's easy to migrate to a credit card, which will give you a line of credit, options for savings,
and all of these have to be accompanied by financial education. Not maybe the immediately think the education is a book or a video. It's useful cases to this person that can be rewarded. As an example, in Sigi, we use gamification to educate people in some case uses that are very difficult to understand. Maybe use link for pay. That is not something that everybody is used to. Maybe here in the room we are, but if we go outside, you will not see this is in daily basis. And we use a stimulus just to provoke the person to use this type of technology.
Interesting. And when talking about educating the consumers, let's say, like, switching gears a bit, there's a dark side, let's call it, to digitalizing, which is fraud and scams. So, and I know this is a big topic for companies like TransUnion. So why don't you, Luli, tell us, let's say, how are you helping all these, let's say, next generation fintechs and entrepreneurships inside big companies like Banco Industrial and others to help prevent fraud from TransUnion and likewise from MasterCard? And then it would be interesting to see how you're educating the consumers in that end as well.
Absolutely, thank you. So TransUnion has a robust set of solutions that allow for clients like Ziggy and fintechs and financial institutions to be very precise around identifying the individuals that are participating in the transaction, from senders to receivers, if they're going to then take on credit, or if they will be doing some other sort of the transaction, right? So like Michelle was saying, it's super important for you to capitalize on that opportunity when you're digitizing a client. Also super important that you consider that that moment is potentially capturing somebody who will bring on multiple use case opportunities onto your relationship model. So TransUnion has the ability to support and solve for those challenges. As I said, identity verification, validation, understanding also the risk of the device. So if we're talking about digitization, we are talking about people who are using digital channels. So you have to be able to qualify and understand what is that device exposed to? Have they participated in any fraudulent activity? Are they trustworthy? What is that channel that that consumer is coming from? What does it look like? So that is the data repository that I was talking about earlier, that TransUnion has a huge repository across the globe with more than 10 billion data sets there, devices that we have visibility and reporting on what the quality of that engagement looks like. And also then ultimately, when you think of it more towards the life cycle of that consumer, is the qualification of that individual. So we have our fraud solutions, we also have credit risk solutions, so we have a suite of very precise solutions that complement the activity that the consumer is going to bring throughout the life cycle of the engagement that financial institution or fintech wants to have with them.
And in a country, like Guatemala, how deep is TransUnion's, let's say, database? And even, let's say, if you're a consumer who hasn't had any banking experience, what other type of data are you including in those data sets?
I love that. Thank you so much. That's such an important topic for TransUnion. So one of the most important things that we need to consider when we're talking about financial inclusion and we want to bridge the gap of that experience is to share data, is to have the participation of all of the participants of the ecosystem in sharing the data. I was reading an article last week about other mature markets. What are the top 5 mitigating strategies for fraud prevention? And sharing data is within that top 5. So the more data is shared, and yes, this is a call to action to all of our partners and all of our players that we have here, not only in this market, but in others, that we need to have that engagement, that participation. The more visibility that we have with alternate data, or even with traditional credit data, the better the quality of the output for everybody who is in that space of wanting to include underserved and unserved consumers that are going to hop on this journey for the first time. As Paolo was saying, you want the first experience to be a very positive one. If they get burned, if they get hurt, if they don't have a positive experience, chances that that person defaults to cash are very big. So everybody gains from that participation. It takes a village. We all have to work together, and it's a joint effort in redefining the definition of creditworthiness, because you have people coming from different spaces, different areas, and we want to be able to see what that consumer that doesn't have previous credit history, how do they behave in other fronts that can give us a little bit more understanding on their creditworthiness, predictability on behavior, and that just enhances for everybody the output.
Yeah, digitalization, it is important, but it's not only, we can talk about being it widespread without being sustainable and safe. So I think trust is the basic foundation for it, and we build trust by protecting every single transaction. And just to give a sense of numbers, we protect or we process more than 160 billion transactions per year. Only in the last few years, we invested more than $10 billion in MasterCard in cybersecurity. So how do we create tools that will protect both ends of the transaction? So AI, identity, tokenization. So this is the way we'll figure it out, how you can make users comfortable, and not only users, but the ecosystem. And this is something that it impacts everybody, all issuers, acquirers, networks, and users. It should be an ecosystem play, and not that only one company will solve. And especially in our region, we know how creative we can be when it comes to scams and fraud. So it is a top of mind topic on our strategic decisions and also on our product prioritization.
And at the end, solutions as SIGI, we have to manage all the information, all the capabilities that have something as a MasterCard. We have our own capabilities to orchestrate the relationship with the clients, because we have to understand the client, and manage this relationship requires that he understand how mitigate the risk. And in this moment, we are mitigating the risk using a face recognition or using a token or whatever. We have to be so clear with the client in this part of the journey, because we want to get a stick of that and to feel secure and doesn't feel the friction in our relationship. We want to pass to him this sense of secureness about the relationship that we have.
Great. Let's switch gears again, and let's talk a bit about remittances. So remittances is, let's say, the blood of a lot of Guatemalan and Central American families here. So why don't you, all of you, tell us a bit more. How are these remittances, let's say, incorporated in the different products that you're building?
I'll make a comment and then I'll let you answer. Probably, I don't know, it is my first time in Guatemala, and one of the things that I was amazed at when we landed yesterday at the airport, I saw so many families and people with their balloons waiting for the others. I said, I have never seen, I have been in India a few times, or even in Brazil. I was surprised about their really being happy of having them back, etc. And then I realized it through a few conversations that's probably showing appreciation because of the remittances that you are receiving all over the year. And Guatemala, I think it is the second largest corridor coming from the US, only behind Mexico. So again, a huge country, a huge opportunity. And we at MasterCard, we are much more than only a network. We have a strong services area which offers a few products under MasterCard Move and a few others. So for us, it's also a really good opportunity to work with you all and local partners to offer better solutions on remittances that, again, you can trust, you don't see friction. The price, it's something that it's not eating most of your savings. So I'm glad that you were touching on remittances as well.
The experience that Paola have here, her first time in Guatemala, is because the remittances is a lifeline. That this person goes abroad, even if he don't want it to do it, but he is the savior of this family. And that is why us in Banco Industrial and also in SIGI, we are like obsessed to resolve this thing. And this is something that we can fight for that, but we can give it to them a very transparent solutions. One of the solutions that we launched very near, I think 3 months ago, it's to send money from the US to Guatemala using a stable coin as a bridge. And this is a very good opportunity to new capabilities and the diversity of the different capabilities. Also, you can send money using MasterCard Send as a service. You can use PaySend, that it's part of MasterCard, or you can use the other remittances that are traditional.
But MasterCard's better, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Just
it's one of the best. It's one of the best. Not the cheapest one, but it's the best.
But the most valuable.
Yeah, definitely. But I think it's a huge opportunity that we have in Central America overall, but also in Guatemala, not to be obsessed in the saving of the remittances. It's how we can educate people to spend it with more wise, with a specific, objective. And this is one of the key things that we want to manage in the near future.
So just to follow up there, so you're talking about people not cashing out the remittances as soon as they get it, but instead being able to have a specific use, like a fridge or a home and so on.
Or to cash out and distribute in all the family without any matter or objective specifically. But it's very difficult because you have to build trust, and everybody trusts in the cash. They receive it digitally, and they go to the ATM immediately to get the cash and count it in the table of the house and distribute it between the family. That is a key challenge that we have.
Luli, and I'm curious, like, is there a way for remittances to build credit? Can a remittance that a consumer in Guatemala receives actually help him or her build their credit? Is that something that TransUnion actually traces? I'm just curious.
Well, let's just put it into context a little bit, right? Remittances, they're probably one of the biggest use cases in real-time payments platforms today, right? It's super important, as we were saying here, as a lifeline and as an opportunity to really bring in capital to the country and allow people to have the ability to make payments. So it starts with, first of all, securing the transactions that are happening in that ecosystem. So we have to be very, very careful around the level of controls, the digital onboarding, the security, understanding really the individuals that are participating on the send side and on the receive side, so that once the money is in the country or it lands in either a digital wallet or a digital account, it can then flow through the country and then potentially, yes, help them build credit. So I think that the education is super important to what you're saying, so that when people receive those remittances, they don't just cash everything out and then everybody loses visibility of what's happening because it's falling into the informal market. And educate them and teach them on how do you wisely utilize that money to your favor, to help build credit, to help build a history and behavior of transactionality that will then allow you to potentially have a credit card or to have other means of payments for you to utilize. So I would say, yes, it's super important to help build credit. And TransUnion supports all of that life cycle, all of those different stages of engagement that a consumer has with financial institutions, from our fraud solutions, credit risk solutions, and supporting them throughout the way.
And just to double check, the majority of, let's say, these remittances companies are sharing their data now with TransUnion in one way or another, or not all of them, as you mentioned before?
Well, remittances are coming from all places across the globe, right? Because think of Guatemala, for example, as a receiving country. You have multiple corridors coming. So the participation varies, of course, but we're always working with all of our clients and partners to make sure that we have all of that data, especially also focusing on non-traditional data if we're talking about people that are actually coming from an experience where they don't have traditional credit experience.
And that's a great segue. Let's talk about non-traditional data and alternative data, since a lot of these informal transactions that are going on in the economy are and everything now that we have and measure with like our cell phones. And for example, yesterday, Adalberto from Quesky was mentioning some of the alternative data they use to underwrite. What is the, let's say, the lowest hanging fruit when it comes to alternative data and payment, so that can be used to build the credit histories, to build the income histories that required to actually, convert these consumers into financial players?
So at TransUnion, we look for three key things, right? One is coverage, two is credibility, and then three is predictability. So when we think about alternate data or non-credit data, we really want companies like telcos or government agencies or utility companies, or even information that are non-credit financial engagements that consumers have, for example, information on savings accounts. All of that can help us build a picture, a better picture of how a consumer behaves around the commitments that they're contracting with those entities. So it might not be a formal line of credit, for example, but if you have a bill for electricity or for water and you're paying those on time, it's informing that you are a consumer that is capable of honoring your commitment. That is huge. That gives you great visibility into what then you could potentially do when you're engaging in a your first personal loan or your first credit card or something like that. So it's super important for the entire ecosystem. Again, as we're saying, that collaborative effect has an exponential effect in the ecosystem. Because imagine, Michelle, they're starting the engagement with the consumer in Ziki. That person has never had credit before. What have they done that can show us that they will be able to receive their first line of credit? So it's super important. It's for the benefit of everybody who participates. It protects the industry because it gives visibility to everybody, avoids loan stacking, helps consumers have visibility if there's any account takeover activity. So I would say it's truly for the benefit. It's a win-win for TransUnion.
No, I would like to add that the challenge with data today is not having data, it's knowing what are the important data that will help you navigate and make the smarter decisions. And as Luli said, this should be good for the whole industry. So we at MasterCard, we are being very careful on how do we help our partners identifying what is the right level of data that you need, how can you predict your users' needs, how can you support sometimes even shaping regulatory needs, because also when we talk about innovation, you need regulatory landscape to support it, and data has been quite a hot topic. So I would just add to what Luli said, being careful about data. Sometimes we are so addicted to data that it's hard to really understand what are the important data that we really need, and that will help us shaping our business.
I think there is no low-hanging fruit right now. We think that the opportunity is financial inclusion. If it's easy, somebody had made it until today. But it's a real huge challenge that we have. And I think we are part of this challenge. We have to be accountable of this. Every time that each one of you put your hand in your pocket and you give someone cash, you are contributing to a person that is not financially included. And this person that is not financially included, it's closing the doors to all of these opportunities that we are talking right now. Maybe to have a better housing, have a better life, opportunity to have a credit to education for their kids or whatever. But I think it's a responsibility not only for the banks or for TransUnion or for MasterCard, it's to all the companies, the ecosystem in general, to be part of the financial inclusion and to stimulate this share of data, to be trust in the companies that have the secure regulation and the controls and all the environment that can manage this data and be useful to give this business case in front of the clients.
Well, amazing. So we have only a couple of minutes left, and I know when we were preparing the panel, you asked me, let's say as a venture capitalist, what do I find interesting and let's say backable as a VC in the region. So I'll ask the question to myself, I guess, and just give a little background there on what we're finding attractive. So, without a doubt, and we were before our panel, like there are some good examples of companies that were making it big in other parts of the world. So, fintech in emerging markets is probably the biggest opportunity, has been the best funded, let's say, segment. And what we think is really interesting today is this combination of, let's call it, embedded finance in the day-to-day operation. So if we find companies that have let's say the software, the vertical software integrations, and have, let's say, SMBs, they serve SMBs some way, and I can validate the information. I can also validate the identities of who's at the other end, and I know their histories. We believe that, let's say, that vertical integration with a reliable source, like mission critical source, is super interesting, because then you can deploy let's say a big high volume operation and do it sustainably. And that brings alternative data and all the things we've been discussing. So just wanted to just to wrap up. Any closing comments that you wish you had known, let's say, or you want to give to aspiring entrepreneurs here?
For me, one of the keys here is you have to be obsessed to how manage the data, because the front, the application, and all of that, it will disappear nearby. The artificial intelligence through the agents, it will manage all the relationship that you have with the products. They will decide which bank is the better option that you're gonna have to acquire anything that you want. They're gonna go to the page that is with the best price, with the best reviews, and they will put your good or the needs or the vacation that you dream in your hand in an instant. We're gonna be only a dot in these different parts of the add value that you're gonna give to a person. But definitely all the fancy brands and all of that, for me, in my opinion, will disappear eventually, because the artificial intelligence will manage the end-to-end with the personalization, the needs that you want, with all the characteristics that will fit for you.
I think for me, the way that I'm excited that we have all the components to move the millions of buyers and sellers from informality to the digital world. If we work on the acceptance, and we have solutions already in the country ready to scale, but also with the right set of products. How can we offer something that for them will be better than dividing the cash in the kitchen table every month? So we have all of it for doing this transformation faster than we expect.
And I would say, the call to action again, right? Let's come together as an ecosystem with our responsibility for accelerating financial inclusion and enabling those underserved and unserved to participate in the services that are out there by sharing data, either traditional data or non-traditional data. The more we come together as a group, the better the quality of the services that will be provided. More trust, more transparency to the ecosystem. I think it will only accelerate the financial inclusion in the country.
All right, so there you have it. If you're touching any transaction, make sure to report it so that TransUnion can use it. And thank you everyone for the panel, and please give it up to our panelists.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.